The Buchenwald concentration camp was one of the most abhorrent sights in the Third Reich.
Inside, thousands of people lived crowded under miserable conditions. Diseases, hunger, cold, and thirst had turned them into little more than walking corpses. And in their eyes, there was nothing but hopelessness and pain. Prisoners who had been there for a long time were familiar with every corner of the facility. They knew the guard towers, the barracks where the guards who tortured them slept, the offices of the administrators, and each of the blocks that housed the inmates. However, there was one place that no prisoner had access to, and few had heard of. It was a barracks located outside the camp, hidden in the middle of the forest and surrounded by a 3-meter-high wall. Barbed wire at the top ensured that no one entered or exited that mysterious establishment. Inside Buchenwald, the camp held its best-kept secret. There was an Italian princess held captive. Today, in this new episode of Military History, we will tell you everything about the tragic life of Mafalda of Savoy. Mafalda of Savoy was born on November 19, 1902, in the city of Rome, Italy. She was the second daughter of King Victor Emmanuel III, who had unexpectedly ascended to the throne just 2 years earlier after his father was assassinated by an anarchist. The young princess was raised surrounded by servants and luxury, while the country's political situation deteriorated rapidly. Workers' strikes and protests became a daily occurrence, and political violence in the form of bombings and street fights proliferated. By 1923, Italy had already gone through World War I, and Benito Mussolini's fascist movement was on its way to total dominance of the nation.
It was in this turbulent context that plans began for Mafalda's marriage. When she was 21 years old, she met her fiancé.
King Victor Emmanuel had chosen a powerful German nobleman to marry his daughter. This man was Philip of Hesse-Kassel, a 27-year-old with Nordic features and a cold demeanor. Rumors circulated that he was bisexual, although this was never confirmed. On the other hand, his admiration for Italian fascism and Adolf Hitler's emerging Nazism was well known. Mafalda had received a humanistic education and did not agree with her fiancé's totalitarian ideals. However, she had no choice but to go ahead with her father's plans and marry Philip. The wedding took place in 1925, and in the years that followed, the couple had 4 children. Eventually, her husband joined the National Socialist Party and was appointed a member of the SA, the paramilitary wing of the Nazi Party. When Hitler came to power in 1933, Philip's loyalty was rewarded with the title of governor of the German province of Hesse-Kassel. Despite none of this pleasing the princess, she did not suspect that the worst was yet to come. As her husband rose through the ranks of the Nazi hierarchy, Mafalda distanced herself from him. She dedicated herself to raising their children and watched from afar as World War II broke out and Europe descended into carnage. In 1943, the Allies invaded the island of Sicily and from there, advanced into southern Italy. These events exposed Mussolini's complete inability to lead the war effort, leading King Victor Emmanuel to depose him and order his imprisonment. This infuriated Hitler, who sought his chief collaborator arrested as a common criminal. As a result, he launched Operation Axe, the hunt for members of the Italian royal family. Mafalda was convinced she was safe from Hitler's wrath because her husband was an important Nazi figure. However, this proved to be a grave miscalculation, as her head had a price on it too. On September 22, 1943, she was arrested by German troops and flown to Germany. Once there, she learned that her husband had also been imprisoned on Hitler's orders, leaving her alone and without anyone to protect her. The Nazi leader believed that Mafalda was a spy for the Allies, and the Minister of Propaganda Joseph Goebbels referred to her as the biggest bitch of the Italian royal house. It was decided to send her to the Buchenwald concentration camp and lock her in barracks number 15. As we mentioned at the beginning of the video, this place was hidden in the middle of the forest and was a quarters designated for high-ranking prisoners. The facility had 10 rooms, a kitchen, and a bathroom, which was more luxury than the other inmates saw. The princess shared the facilities with 53 other people, including Léon Blum, the French Prime Minister, and Fritz Thyssen, one of Germany's most prominent businessmen. The food they received was meager, consisting of black bread crumbs, butter, coffee, and meat soup. Despite the scanty menu, Mafalda shared her rations with the other prisoners, who thanked her for her generosity. As the months went by, it became clear that no one would come to rescue her. But a year later, when all seemed lost, the princess believed she saw her salvation flying across the sky.
On the morning of August 24, 1944, a reconnaissance squadron from the Allied Air Force flew over Buchenwald and dropped hundreds of leaflets announcing a bombing raid. The banners read that the attack would target the arms factories located in the concentration camp and asked the German commanders to move the prisoners away from that area. This could have been a unique opportunity for the princess to escape, but the Germans, in fact, ignored the warning.
Hours later, at noon, the sound of airplane engines approaching the site was heard again. From her barracks, our protagonist watched as the bombs fell on their heads. The shelter collapsed under the weight of the explosions, and the rooms caught fire.
Mafalda's cellmate suffocated in the smoke, and many others perished in the flames.
Let's hear the testimony of one of the witnesses of the attack. I saw from a distance that the barrack had been reduced to a pile of smoldering ashes. The wall that surrounded it had been destroyed by the bombs. As I approached, I heard a voice calling for help and discovered that it was the Italian princess. So I recruited 8 prisoners who happened to be nearby, and we started to unearth the victims. When Mafalda was partially freed, we had to stop because she asked us to help another woman first, whose body lay across her feet. The daughter of King Victor Emmanuel had been gravely wounded. One of her arms was so badly burned that, at the shoulder, you could see the bone protruding through the skin. The attack had destroyed the 2 military hospitals in Buchenwald, and the only thing still standing was the infirmary filled with the dying. To give her a place with more privacy, she was transferred to the camp's brothel. Mafalda was extremely weakened, weighed only 45 kilograms, and was fighting a fierce battle against death. 2 days later, when all seemed lost, gangrene took over her forearm, and it became clear that surgery was necessary. Despite the need for amputation, the head of the medical ward postponed the operation for unknown reasons. It's possible that he was waiting for orders from his superiors before proceeding, or he didn't want to be responsible for amputating a princess's arm. In any case, the amputation was approved 4 days after the bombing, when it was already too late, and Mafalda's health had deteriorated even further. On August 28, 1944, at 7 p.m., the princess was taken to the operating room and anesthetized. The person in charge of the operation was a doctor who had never performed an amputation before, so the result was disastrous. Excessive blood loss, combined with the poor hygienic conditions of the place, made the surgery a complete failure. The princess never woke up from her sleep. At the age of 41, Mafalda of Savoy, who had been raised in a palace, died in the dirty bed of a concentration camp. According to some witnesses, her last words before losing consciousness were as follows: "I am dying." I don't want to be remembered as a princess, but as an Italian sister.
Her body was buried in the German province of Thuringia, in an unmarked grave.
Her death was not confirmed by the German authorities until the final moments of the war. Her parents, King Victor Emmanuel and Queen Elena, learned of it by reading the news in a newspaper. In 1951, the exhumation of her remains was authorized, and they were transferred to the mausoleum of the House of Hesse, her husband Philip's family.
We have reached the end of the video. Leave your comments in the box below and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to learn about many more military events that left their mark on history.